All right, finally, the last topic. In this set, we are thinking about quantity restrictions. Now, this is kind of an old school sort of a policy that you might have seen talked about in the 70s, but much less so now, although there are sort of updates on it. So let's just think about the very classic, simple version, just to wrap our idea around the concept. Uh, in this case, we are going to say there is a finite number of units that is allowed to be sold. So we might say something like only X number of cars can be sold. Or, hey, here's an idea, only X number of housing units can be made available in Suffolk County. We kind of implicitly have something like a quota when we're thinking about real estate markets, especially in the big markets in the US. We have a restriction on quantity relative to what we might have had with looser zoning laws. That's a whole big question about the externality aspect of that. I'll say normatively that I come down on the side of I'd prefer to see looser zoning laws. Although as a homeowner, restricting quantity means a higher price for me. So I don't know, maybe let's wait until I divest before we liberalize those markets. So what do we get in terms of the mathematics of this? Well, we've got a specific quantity. So we've got some key points we can look at here. So one is what price corresponds with that quantity from the demand curve. We also want to think about what price corresponds with that from the supply curve. I'll call this P super S and P super D for demand and supply price for this quantity. So this means we have a target for a minimum cost, right? We have some idea about what is the lowest cost way to provide this good. Do we have any guarantee that we do in fact get those low cost suppliers there? Well, not really, right? So who's actually going to supply? It could be whoever is, most politically connected to the zoning board. Well, that might mean we get some higher cost things than we would here. Although at the very least, if they have that ability to be the sellers, they have incentive to shave costs where they can. And they've got a captive market, so they're probably going to try and get away with that anyways. So we probably have some pressure towards low-cost production with the builders basically siphoning something off, right? Basically taking some profits out of that. So given the restricted quantity, what about this price? Why isn't the price to buyers way down here? Well, this boils down to we've got other buyers who would like this. So these buyers are going to have to outbid these buyers to be the ones who get there. And since they get the most value from this product, they in fact do. So if we think about, say, housing in Suffolk County, especially housing, say, close to the railroads, you're going to have high-income people who work in the city who are going to be able to pay more than people who would like to have access to the job market of the city, but just don't already have the wealth, right? So lower-income people are going to be frozen out of this market that we've restricted with zoning laws. So higher price, so the people who do get it, they're not even benefiting, right? So this is the thing, my situation, certainly if the price falls, I'm kind of hosed because I've got a mortgage. But if I could get rid of my mortgage and the price of housing went down, I would be really happy. That's a political problem, and we can apply some math to that also, but we're not going to do it here. We're going to keep this one relatively short. Again, we have the same sort of stuff that we had with price controls. Our basic dead weight loss is the same triangle we've been looking for. In this case, our quantity is some exogenous quantity. Q star is going to be the same old Q star we had before. And then these prices, we're just plugging in this quantity to the supply and demand functions. There's not a whole lot of interesting algebra to do, but it is worth laying out what's going on here. And then thinking about, what can go wrong. Well, at the very least, we know that the price, there is pressure to go upward. Given that high price, if the sellers are determined by license, then the question of who gets the license, how does that correlate with their cost of providing something? A ceteris paribus good, that is a different matter. But let's not get into it. We're not going to worry too much about this. Like I said, this is kind of an old-fashioned type of policy, but it is worth at least seeing it.